Hello guys, it's me Simo Urahara, and in this video I want to talk about chapter 188 of Bleach manga. And I can name this chapter as a chapter of the official appearance of Isshin Kurosaki, because I find this chapter one of the best chapters that Kubo made in the story. A pivotal chapter par excellence, because it introduces all the characters who will play an important role in the Urahara arc as well as the story of Ichigo's birth. So guys, let's start reviewing this chapter. First of all, this chapter is the first chapter of volume 22, the second volume of the Urahara arc, and it was a continuation of the events of Isshin Kurosaki's appearance as a Shinigami for the first time. And the appearance of Isshin as a Shinigami shocked everyone. Gon's comment while watching Isshin's walking in Shihakusho clothes was everyone's comment. How this foolish man is actually a Shinigami with such powers. And I honestly liked Isshin's features in this panel more than the version of the anime. In the manga, Kubo drew clear feelings of sadness for Isshin, unusual feelings, because Isshin in his human mode, he was always trying to hide his emotional side, and here he appeared to be truly remorseful that he couldn't save Masaki. And after these scenes, Urahara Kisuke will appear. I already mentioned in this video that I admire the friendship between Urahara Kisuke and Isshin Kurosaki, and how these two have deep relationship and they know a lot. I said that Urahara Kisuke wouldn't have contacted Ichigo and trained him and sent him to the Soul Society without Isshin's knowledge, and this will be confirmed to you shortly. The important thing is that Urahara's meeting with Isshin opened the door for a lot of discussions at that time, especially regarding Isshin's past. If he was a Shinigami, in which squad was he in, as well as how Urahara Kisuke knows him and what his relationship to him. On this page, if you notice that Kubo gave future hints about the role of Urahara Kisuke in Isshin's past. We later learned that Urahara Kisuke, in order to save Masaki, used the power of Isshin, so that he entered him in the Gigai and used his Shinigami power to prevent Masaki from falling into a state of soul suicide, because Shiro had infiltrated her soul. That's why if you noticed what Kisuke was saying here, as if he was referring to this issue, this was a clear indication that Urahara Kisuke was responsible for Isshin's loss of power. In the chapters of Everything But the Rain, these things will be explained. And this chapter also contains important words for Isshin about Masaki. Isshin was so clear that he said that he had no hatred for the whole that had killed Masaki, and this may indicate that Isshin had no hatred for the Grand Fisher, because he knew that the real reason for Masaki's death was Yhwach. If Yhwach hadn't stolen Masaki's Quincy powers, Masaki would have been able to whip out the Hollow with ease. And after this short speech between Urahara and Isshin about Masaki incident, they will talk about another important part, about Ichigo. Urahara talks about how Isshin hasn't changed and that his son looks a lot like him, and then Urahara will tell him, "Did you notice?" And here Isshin will talk about the important point I made in the previous video and at the beginning of this video. Notice what Isshin said. "Yes, as you predicted," meaning that Urahara Kisuke had previously spoken with Isshin about his son Ichigo, and perhaps they both knew from the beginning that when Ichigo would awaken his powers, his hollow powers would also activate, which he inherited from his mother. Of course, I don't think they knew that Shiro had the nature of a Sauchi, because this is information that only Nimaya knows, but most importantly, they predicted what the nature of Ichigo's powers would be. So I think after his training and sending Ichigo to the Soul Society, no doubt Urahara Kisuke told Isshin that once your son returns to the real world, he will come back and the powers of the Hollow is activated, and as a result the Wizard will notice that, and so sooner or later they will contact him. This is what really happened, because in the beginning of the arc, Hirako came to offer Ichigo to join them. In the context of talking about the deal of the Wizard in Ichigo, Isshin tried to give us an initial definition about about the Vizard. Of course, he mentioned that they were a group of rogues who tried to acquire holo powers in a forbidden way. And I think it was just Kubo's way of not trying to reveal the real reason about their powers, because back then Kubo hadn't yet revealed their past. And after that, Isshin started talking about the Arankara. And that's why I said this chapter was pivotal, because it contained all the ingredients of the Arankara arc and the story of Ichigo's birth. They talked about some of the past of Isshin, just small hints, and they talked about the Vizard, about the Arankara, and from Isshin's words, he seemed to have extensive knowledge about the Arankara, to the point that he concluded that this Arankara was just a small experiment for Aizen. The strange thing here is that Isshin seemed more familiar with Arankara types than Urahara Kisuke, but both they were wrong about the timing that Aizen might be able to attack with a strong army of Arankara. Why did I say they weren't right in time? Because 2 chapters later, Elikiura and Yami will come to Karakura town for the first time. But the good thing is, Isshin and Urahara Kisuke knew how dangerous the situation was, and also seemed to know all the aspects of the game. They knew about the Vizard, about the Arankara, about Aizen, and the use of the Hogyoku. And most importantly, they knew about Ichigo's situation. And as I said in a previous video, that Aizen thought he would benefit from Ichigo. But in my personal opinion, Urahara Kisuke and Isshin were benefiting from Aizen by letting Ichigo go to him to fight and develop his powers that will defeat Aizen in the end. And I have to add that the chapter ended with this beautiful ending. In the end of that chapter, Kubo moved to the Soul Society, and that was the first look of the captains after the end of the Soul Society arc. And Kubo showed how all the captains were preparing to go to the first division headquarters to attend the captains meeting. And the chapter ended with this wonderful scene. As you can see, in one chapter, Kubo was able to gather several important points and provide rich information to the readers. He talked about Isshin, Urahara Kisuke, the Vizard, Ichigo, the Arankara, and Aizen, and the captains. So, as I always say, that when Kubo is in a comfortable situation, I mean in terms of the success of the manga and he doesn't have any health problems, he takes his full time building the storyline of the events. And he was working like that at the beginning of the final arc, and I will make video explaining this. But at certain point, everything was collapsed, and I think the main reason was because of Kubo's health problem. So guys, was my review of this chapter because I loved reading it, so I said why not to share it with you, and see you guys in my next video.